1974, 2 general elections, a 3-day week to save electricity, and Manchester United are relegated. Big events, but also the year that Bolton became part of the new metropolitan county of Greater Manchester. And almost half a century later, some want to be back in Lancashire. And yes, just to be clear, we are talking about administrative areas, not historic counties. Here's Mairead Smith.
Hi. I need a dozen red roses. Okay. What have you got?
The red rose, the symbol of Lancashire. But here in Bolton, it is simply a symbol of love.
Oh, these look nice.
Unless a campaign to return the town to the county of Lancashire succeeds.
You're buying your Lancashire cheese. Do you feel Bolton should still be part of Lancashire or stay in Greater Manchester?
At one time I would have said yes, it should stay in Lancashire, but now I'm Greater Manchester.
I just don't feel right being part of Greater Manchester. I will always be a lassie from Lancashire, yeah.
I think every shire should run themselves, so I want it to go back to Lancashire.
It's Lancashire. It's always been Lancashire. Because Greater Manchester was a district made up, it's a Lancastrian town. Always is. Always will be.
The call to return Bolton to Lancashire isn't a new one, but next year it will have renewed energy from one of the candidates for Mayor of Greater Manchester, who wants to see Bolton return to Lancashire 50 years after it was made part of Greater Manchester in the Local Government Act of 1974.
I want to give the people of Bolton that choice to say, do you want to remain in Greater Manchester or would you like to leave and rejoin Lancashire? And it's not just Bolton. I've had feedback from people in Wigan and Rochdale and Stockport, and they want the same sort of thing, to go back to those historic counties that meant something to them.
Nick will hand out red roses on the steps of the town hall on the 3rd of June to galvanise more support.
Boltonians class themselves as Lancastrians, we always have done. We pay a lot of money into the Greater Manchester administration, millions, 20-odd million a year. We get very little back for it. And if you walk around Manchester, you can smell the money, you can tell it's got money. Yeah, it has, our money.
But the current mayor of Greater Manchester isn't convinced.
Bolton benefits from its closeness to Manchester. Bolton is getting the B network. Is Mr. Buckley really saying that he wants to take Bolton out of Greater Manchester's integrated public transport system?
And for many in Bolton, the Red Rose campaign means little to them.
Do counties even matter these days? Do they matter? I don't think they do. Unless it affects me bills, if it's cheaper for being Lancashire, my council tax come down, I'm all right with that. I'll do that, but whatever. It doesn't really matter.
Interestingly, though, it really does matter to some people, as we heard. James, is it such a bad idea? Bring Bolton back into Lancashire?
It's an interesting approach for somebody who says he wants to be the mayor of Greater Manchester. The first act to kick Bolton out of Greater Manchester and return it to Lancashire. It's not a burning issue in Bury. It is probably very strongly felt by the small numbers that feel it. I think any advice I would be giving to anybody that was challenging, particularly Andy, who I hope continues to be our Greater Manchester mayor, is to come up with ideas and policy that help transform life and living in Greater Manchester. And for Bolton and Bury, as I plan to do, is to make sure that it gets its fair share from the new devolved powers that Greater Manchester now has.
And that's interesting, actually, Matt, because your county, Cumbria, has obviously gone through its own massive transformation and been split into 2 unitary authorities. Largely, the Conservatives said to help with devolution. Do you think, therefore, that what's happening now in Bolton is a crazy idea?
I think you've seen from the film there is an element of conflagration between the sort of romantic notions of the historic counties or shires and the sort of the modern administration of our towns and cities. And yes, I agree that there is an element of wanting to go back to the old ways of doing things. I'm someone who was born and raised in and around the Barrow and Furness area, which of course until 1973-74 was Lancashire over the water, and I've grown up with that all my life. Is that a lot of people still consider them Lancastrians, but as we've seen here in Furness in the last 18 months or so, we have to move with the times when it comes to local government administration. Populations change, priorities change, We saw in the film there the Greater Manchester Integrated Transport Network, which obviously is much more important in many ways than notions of old counties and shires.
All right. Thank you both on that.